Now, in other news, Israel's defense forces are often depicted in the media, but it's not always in a very positive light. In fact, it's usually quite the opposite. But for the last year, photographer Menachem Geisinsky has been looking to shift the narrative by showcasing the humanity of our Israeli defense forces. Joining me with his Smiling Soldiers project is Menachem Geisinsky. Menachem, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start off with what the project is exactly.
Sure. So the Smiling Project, its objective is to show the world the humanity of the IDF, the true side, the happiness, the smiles that the world's media tries its best to hide. And this is what the soldiers are all about. They're not these cold, soldiers that the world's media tries to portray them as. They're just like anybody else. They have fun, they have boyfriends, girlfriends, they have lives like anybody else. And this is what we're trying to show. We're trying to show that they're just like any other 20-year-old in the world that just is serving their country.
So how did you come up with this premise, though? Because you've been working on it for about the last year, and you've been in Israel for almost that same amount of time. So right. Did you come up with it before or after you came?
So when I got to Israel, one day I was on social media and I saw some really terribly out of context, manipulated photos of the IDF that, if you really believe that stuff, it did not look good. Right. And the next day I was in the Shuk in Jerusalem and I saw this soldier with his girlfriend and they were so happy, and it was just something that I thought people should see this side of the IDF, that the humanity, that they're really just like anybody, they're regular people. And that's when we started taking pictures of the soldiers. And it started off mainly in Jerusalem, but as it started to gain momentum, it actually, the IDF's been incredibly helpful. I think they think this is an important project. The soldiers themselves really appreciate it. They're always trying to help. And they've been giving us, they give us sometimes access to a base to photograph the soldiers, and it's been really incredible.
So that's what I was going to ask. How do you choose your subjects, especially because I've seen in some of these photos, it looks like you're in places where most civilians do not have access to.
So right now, there's two things we're trying to cover, which is we're trying to get at the different divisions of the IDF. We're trying to get the tank unit, the artillery, the infantry. We're trying to cover the different bases, the Navy, the Air Force. But something we recently started was to show the stories behind the soldiers, the person behind the uniform. If it's a lone soldier from Belgium, or if it's, an Israeli who's, really they're like a ballet dancer and then they drafted to the army, and you add the humanity that people see that they're just like anybody else, and they stop their life to join the army, to protect their family, to protect their country.
I think, because that really is something in Israel that maybe in the West people don't understand, is that almost everybody goes to the army. So it's not just these career soldiers. What do you say to critics who argue that you're whitewashing Israel's alleged crimes?
I think, honestly, I am showing one side. I am showing the happy side of the IDF. But I think it's important to counter because no one sees this side. I'm not showing the quote-unquote negative side. I don't think there is a real negative side. But I'm really just showing what people haven't seen. I'm trying to balance out the scales, if you may, right? Because there's so much bad content about the IDF that I'm just going to show you the good stuff.
All right, so let's get into maybe one particular story. You don't have to name names, but what's one of the stories that maybe you're highlighting that sticks out in your head?
So actually, coming soon, we're doing a story about this Argentinian girl. This American girl. Her mom's Argentinian. Her dad serves in the U.S. Navy, and she decided to come to Israel to draft. Now she's in Palchatz, and we met. We took some photos of her on her uniform. She has an American flag, an Argentinian flag, and of course an Israeli flag. And really a great, sweet person. And we had a really nice conversation. And this is what we're trying to show, that it's everybody. Everybody, if you really think about it, if you really know what's going on in Israel, you side with the IDF. You know that they're right. You know that this is the truth. This is reality. She's trying to protect her people. And I think that was a really, a cute story that hopefully we're going to be posting soon to our social media.
Does it, how did you get into all of this in the first place? Because I understand that you haven't been even in photography for that long.
That's right. I started photography during COVID. Got a little bit bored, did some research, and that's kind of how we got here, yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, the pictures are incredible.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful, and they really do bring across the character of the person that you're photographing, which is amazing. What's next for the project, and how long are you going to continue it?
So the next step for the project is we're hoping to make a coffee table style book. just full of smiling soldiers. Just an easy read, just look at the smiles. We'll have some stories in there as well, some insights about the Army. That's the next step. We're going to try to get some sort of funding to put this together. I'm actually heading to the States shortly, and then afterwards we're going to resume this project for a couple of months. But right now the big focus is we're trying to make this book a reality, because the book, I think, is a way of reaching the diaspora and overseas audience, which is obviously the objective of this project. And that's currently what we're working on.
What kind of responses have you gotten online?
So we get, of course, the classic, Free Palestine and a lot of nasty messages, but then you have some really sweet messages from foreigners. From the soldiers are so appreciative. It's incredible. One of the beautiful things about this project was I didn't know much about the Army when I started doing this project, but as it's gone along, I've actually started to I feel more for this project as I get to know the soldiers, as you see how awesome and incredible these people are. And they're so appreciative. I get messages like, I love what you're doing. It's so important that they see this side of the IDF. And those are always, I get messages from their moms, from their sisters, and it's awesome to see that sort of feedback.
All right, Menachem, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.